The mistake that ruined my life began with a door I was never supposed to open. It was 2:17 in the morning when my shift at St. Mary's finally ended, and the whole hospital felt like it was breathing through machines. Fluorescent lights buzzed above me. My sneakers stuck softly to the polished floor. My hands smelled like soap, coffee, and the kind of exhaustion that lived under the skin. I had been awake for 19 hours, long enough for the world to lose its edges. All I wanted was my apartment on the south side, my thrift store blanket, and maybe 4 hours of sleep before the next shift swallowed me again. My name is Claire Bennett. I was 27 years old, a night nurse, and I believe there were only two kinds of people who came through emergency doors after midnight: the ones who needed saving, and the ones who had already given up asking. I never imagined there was a third kind, the kind who brought an entire war behind him. Rain slapped against the loading bay doors as I took the back hallway toward the employee lot. It was the shortcut everyone warned me not to use, but after midnight, warnings start to sound like luxuries. My keys were already between my fingers. My phone was at 12%. My feet hurt so badly I could feel my pulse in my arches. Then I heard it. Not a scream, not even a word. Just a low, controlled breath from somewhere beyond the service entrance, like someone trying very hard not to make a sound. I stopped with my hand on the metal push bar. Every smart part of me said, "Keep walking, Claire. Go to your car. Call security. Pretend you heard nothing." But nurses are trained to listen for the sound people make when pride is the only thing holding them upright. I pushed the door open 3 inches. Cold rain rushed in, sharp as needles against my face. The alley behind St. Mary's was narrow, lined with dumpsters, stacked crates, and a flickering security light that made everything look broken. At first, I saw nothing. Then the shadow near the supply door moved. He was sitting against the brick wall, one knee bent, his head tilted back like he was studying the rain. His shirt was white, or had been once. His dark hair was soaked flat against his forehead. His skin looked pale beneath the yellow light, almost carved from marble, and even half-conscious, he held himself like a man who had never asked permission to exist. I should have been afraid of him. I was. But fear came second. Training came first. I stepped closer. His eyes opened before I touched him. Gray eyes. Cold. Alert. Dangerous in a way I felt before I understood. "Don't," he said, voice rough but steady. "They're still close." That was when I heard footsteps at the far end of the alley. More than one person, moving slowly, searching. My heart climbed into my throat. The man's gaze locked on mine, not pleading, not soft, just certain that I would run. Maybe he was used to that. Maybe everyone ran from him eventually. I looked at the storage room behind me. Old medical carts. Extra linen. A lock that only worked if you kicked the bottom of the door first. A terrible hiding place. The only one we had. "Can you stand?" I whispered. His mouth curved like the question amused him, but when he tried, his breath caught. I slid my arm under his and felt the weight of him, solid, freezing, alive. "You don't know who I am," he murmured. "Right now, you're a patient," I said. "Try not to ruin that for me." Something changed in his eyes. Surprise, maybe, or respect. I didn't wait to find out. I pulled him through the service door, shoved my shoulder against the storage room, and got us inside just as voices passed beyond the rain. The room smelled like bleach and cardboard. My hands shook as I locked the door. His hand closed around my wrist, not hard, just enough to stop me. "Name," he said. "Claire." His eyes stayed on mine. "Claire, if they find you with me, your life changes." I looked at the door, at the thin strip of light underneath it, at the shadow of strangers moving on the other side. Then I looked back at him. "Then don't let them find us." For the first time, the man who looked like he had frightened half the city went completely still. I didn't know his name yet. I didn't know about Adrian Kane, or the family that feared him, or the enemies who wanted his crown. I only knew that his pulse was still there beneath my fingers, stubborn and fading, and if I left him to the mercy of that alley, he would not make it to sunrise. So I did what I had been trained to do. I saved him, and by saving him, I opened the wrong door to a world that would never let me walk back out the same. The storage room was barely 8 feet wide, but with him inside it, it felt smaller than an elevator with the power cut. Rain tapped against the little wire glass window above the shelves. Somewhere beyond the door, men walked past slowly, their shoes scraping the wet concrete outside. I held my breath until my lungs ached. Adrian did not. He sat against the metal cabinet with one hand pressed to his side, watching the line of light under the door like he could measure danger by the way shadows moved. I wanted to ask who they were. I wanted to ask what kind of man got searched for behind a hospital at 2 in the morning. Instead, I grabbed gauze, antiseptic, tape, anything my hands recognized. My fingers moved faster than my thoughts. That was the only reason I did not fall apart. He watched me tear open the first package with my teeth. "You do this often?" he asked. His voice was low, almost calm. "Hide strangers in supply closets?" I whispered. "No. Try not to make this my first disaster." A sound came from the hallway outside. I froze. A man's voice asked if anyone had come through. Another voice answered too close to the door. My heart slammed so hard I thought they would hear it. Adrian reached toward his jacket, but I caught his wrist before he could move. His eyes snapped to mine. For 1 second, I understood that touching him without permission was something most people probably did not survive emotionally. But I was too tired and too scared to care. "No," I breathed. "This is a hospital. We do not make things worse here." His gaze stayed on my face. Then, slowly, he lowered his hand. The doorknob turned. My whole body went cold. I grabbed a clipboard from the shelf, yanked the door open before the person outside could, and stepped into the hallway with the kind of annoyed face every night nurse learns by month 3. 2 men stood there in dark coats, rain dripping from their sleeves. They were not hospital staff. They looked past me toward the storage room, and my stomach dropped. "This area is restricted," I said, forcing my voice flat. "You need to go back to the main entrance." The taller one stared at me. "We are looking for someone." I lifted the clipboard. "Congratulations. I am looking for a working coffee machine and a 12-hour nap. We all have dreams." Neither of them smiled. The shorter one shifted his eyes toward the door again. I stepped fully into his way. "There are cameras in this hall. Security is 2 doors down. And if you make me file an incident report before sunrise, I promise I will remember your faces better than my own birthday." The silence stretched. My knees wanted to shake. I would not let them. Finally, the taller man looked over my shoulder one last time and said, "Wrong building." They walked away. I waited until the service exit closed behind them before I slipped back inside. Adrian was staring at me like I had just done something impossible. "That was stupid," he said. My breath came out in one sharp laugh. "You are welcome." He looked down, and for the first time, I saw the control slip from his face. Not much. Just enough to remind me he was human beneath the expensive watch, the cold eyes, and the quiet authority that seemed stitched into his bones. I cleaned what I could. I wrapped what I could. I kept talking because silence felt too dangerous. I told him my name again, my age, the neighborhood where I grew up, useless facts to keep myself steady. He gave me almost nothing back. Only his name. Adrian Kane. He said it like a warning label. I recognized it after a few seconds. Not from the news exactly. From whispers. From restaurant owners who paid cash. From patients who stopped talking when certain men entered waiting rooms. My hands paused. Adrian noticed. "Now you know," he said. "Now I know you are the reason my rent just got more complicated." His mouth almost moved like he wanted to smile, but pain or pride stopped it. By dawn, the rain had thinned to mist. He could stand without leaning on me, though he did it anyway for 3 steps. Before catching himself, a black SUV waited beyond the loading bay, engine running, windows dark. I had not called anyone. He had. I did not ask how. Before he left, he turned back under the pale hospital light. "Claire Bennett," he said, my full name sounding dangerous in his voice. "Go home. Pack a bag. Do not take your usual route. Do not answer unknown calls." My skin prickled. I am not taking orders from a man I met in a storage room. His eyes held mine, and the softness vanished. "Victor Shaw sent those men. They saw your face. By saving me, you stepped into something that does not forgive witnesses." I gripped my keys until the teeth bit into my palm. "I just want my life back." Adrian looked toward the brightening sky, then back at me. "So did I once." He opened the SUV door, but his final words stayed behind, heavier than the rain. "Go home, Claire. Just understand this first. It may not be safe enough to be called home anymore." I drove home with both hands locked on the wheel and Adrian Kane's warning sitting in the passenger seat like a living thing. Chicago looked different after sunrise. The same brick buildings. The same corner stores opening their gates. The same bus stop where Mrs. Alvarez waited every morning with her canvas grocery bag and purple umbrella. But everything felt watched now. Every parked car looked too still. Every person on the sidewalk seemed to glance twice. I told myself it was exhaustion. 19 hours awake could make shadows move. Fear could turn a normal morning into a crime scene. My apartment was on the 3rd floor above a closed laundromat that smelled like detergent and old pipes. I had lived there for 3 years. It was small, drafty, and loud whenever the train passed 6 blocks away, but it was mine. Or it had been mine until I saw the black SUV across the street. Same kind of tinted windows. Same quiet engine. Same feeling of money pretending to be invisible. A man in a dark coat stood beside it, holding coffee like he had nowhere else to be. He did not look at me directly. That somehow made it worse. I climbed the stairs fast, my shoes squeaking against the worn wood. My landlord, Mr. Kelly, was taping a notice to the apartment next to mine when he saw me. His face lit up in a way it never had when rent was late. "Claire, good news," he said. "Your balance is cleared. 6 months paid ahead." The hallway tilted. "What?" Someone came by early. Very professional. Said it was a private assistance arrangement. My fingers went numb around my keys. Did he give a name? Mr. Kelly shrugged. "No, but the cashier's check cleared." I smiled because women learned to smile when panic would take too much explaining. Inside my apartment, nothing had been touched. My thrift store couch still sagged in the middle. My nursing textbooks still leaned crooked on the kitchen table. A cereal bowl from yesterday waited in the sink, normal and embarrassing in mine. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I let it ring. It stopped. Then a message appeared. "Do not take the west stairs when you leave. Use the front entrance." I stared at the words until they blurred. Another buzz. "Eat something. You have not slept." I did not know whether to laugh or throw the phone across the room. Instead, I changed out of my scrubs, put on jeans, a gray sweater, and the only coat I owned that did not look like it had survived a decade of night shifts. Then I walked straight back outside, crossed the street, and tapped on the SUV window. The glass lowered 2 inches. The man inside looked calm. Too calm. "Take me to him," I said. He did not ask who. 40 minutes later, I stood in the lobby of the Langford Hotel, dripping rainwater onto marble that probably cost more per square foot than my monthly rent. Men in tailored suits watched me from every corner. Not openly, not rudely, just enough to remind me I did not belong there. Adrian was near the windows, wearing a black suit and a white shirt open at the collar, looking like the kind of man cities either obeyed or buried secrets for. He turned before anyone announced me. His eyes moved over my face, my coat, my clenched hands. "You should be sleeping," he said. That was all it took. The fear in me became anger because anger gave me somewhere to put my shaking. "You paid my rent." "Yes." "You put men outside my building." "Yes." "You are reading my movements like a chart." His jaw tightened. "I am keeping you alive." I stepped closer, aware of every silent man in that room pretending not to listen. "You do not get to turn my life into a prison and call it protection." The room changed. Not loudly. No one moved. But the air sharpened. Adrian looked at me for a long second, and I saw something flicker behind the control. Not guilt. Not yet. Maybe surprised that I was standing there at all. "You do not understand the rules of my world," he said quietly. "No," I answered. "But I understand mine. I saved your life. I did not surrender mine." His expression did not soften, but his silence did. It stretched between us, heavy and strange. For the first time since I had opened that storage room door, Adrian Kane looked less like a man giving orders and more like a man who had forgotten there were other ways to care. Then he turned his head toward the lobby entrance, where another man had just arrived, blonde, polished, smiling without warmth. Adrian's voice dropped. "Claire, stand behind me." I did not move. The blonde man's smile widened when he saw me. "So this is the nurse," he said. "The one who made you careless." Adrian went still beside me, and in that instant, I understood the black SUV, the paid rent, the warnings, and the men at every corner. Protection was not the cage. His world was. The blonde man crossed the marble lobby like he belonged to the floor beneath his shoes, the chandeliers above his head, and every breath of silence between them. He was younger than Adrian by a few years, maybe early 30s, with pale hair combed neatly back and a navy coat that looked too perfect for the rain outside. He smiled at me the way doctors smile before giving bad news they already understand. Adrian did not smile back. "Mason," he said, and one word told me everything. Family. Not the warm kind. The kind that could sit at the same table and still sharpen knives under it. Mason Kane looked me over without being obvious about it. That almost made it worse. Claire Bennett, he said. Night nurse. Third floor walk up. No immediate family in Chicago. Student loans. Clean record. Very ordinary. My stomach tightened. You say ordinary like it is a disease. His eyes flicked with amusement. In our world, it usually is. Adrian stepped half an inch forward. Nothing dramatic. No raised voice. No threat I could point to. But every man in the lobby seemed to notice. Mason noticed too, and his smile thinned. The council is waiting, he said. And you brought the problem directly to the front door. I hated that word. Problem. Not woman. Not nurse. Not person. Problem. Adrian turned to me. You are coming with me. That sounded like an order. It was a warning dressed as one. I should have refused. I should have walked out of that hotel and kept walking until the city forgot my name. Instead, I looked through the glass doors at the black vehicles lined along the curb, at the men pretending to read newspapers across the street, at the rain turning Chicago gray and watchful. My life was already following me. So I followed Adrian. The Kane estate sat 40 minutes north of the city behind iron gates and winter trees, the kind of house that did not look built so much as declared. Stone walls. Long driveway. Windows glowing gold against the wet afternoon. Inside, everything smelled like cedar, expensive leather, and old money that had learned not to apologize. I had never felt more aware of my $12 drugstore umbrella or the scuffed heel on my left boot. Men waited in a long room with dark wood walls and a table large enough for a courtroom. Some were older. Some wore wedding rings. Some looked like grandfathers until their eyes reached me. Then all I saw was judgment. Adrian did not introduce me with softness. Claire Bennett saved my life. An older man at the end of the table folded his hands, and in doing so, she became visible. Mason took a seat to Adrian's right, as if that place had been carved for him. Victor Shaw knows her face. Our rivals know Adrian kept her alive. The police may ask questions. The staff at St. Mary's may talk. She is not a person anymore. She is exposure. My hands curled at my sides. I wanted to disappear, but disappearing was exactly what they wanted from me. I am standing right here, I said. The room went quiet. Adrian's head turned. Slightly, not enough to stop me. Only enough to warn me that no one spoke like that in this house. I did anyway. I did not ask for your world. I opened a door because a man was hurt. That is all. One of the older men leaned back. Good intentions do not erase consequences. Neither does power, I said before I could stop myself. Mason gave a soft laugh. She has courage. Unfortunately, courage is not strategy. Adrian's voice cut through the room, low and final. She stays under my protection. The words landed like a glass dropped in church. No one moved, but I felt the fracture. Mason's face lost its polite shine for 1 second. Just one. Enough. Then you are choosing a stranger over blood, he said. Adrian looked at him. I am choosing the person who did not leave me behind. I should have felt safer. I did not. Because as the room emptied, I heard Mason behind the half-open door, speaking softly to someone I could not see. A king who protects a stranger will bury his own family. That was the moment I understood. Victor Shaw might have been outside the gates, but the first person who wanted me gone was already inside the house. By nightfall, the Kane estate had stopped feeling like a house and started feeling like a trial waiting for a verdict. I was given a guest room on the second floor, overlooking the black line of trees beyond the gates. Guest room sounded too kind for it. The door did not lock from the outside, but 2 men stood at the end of the hallway, speaking into earpieces whenever I moved. Protection, Adrian called it. Surveillance, my heartbeat answered. I sat on the edge of the bed in borrowed clothes, my damp sweater folded beside me, my nurse badge resting on the nightstand like proof that I used to belong somewhere normal. St. Mary's had called 6 times. I had not answered. What could I say? Sorry, I cannot come in today because I saved a man the city whispers about, and now his family is deciding whether I am a liability. At 9:16, the knock came. Not Adrian. Mason. He stood in the doorway with that polished smile and 2 men behind him. The council needs you downstairs. My mouth went dry. Does Adrian know? Adrian asked us all to seek the truth. The way he said truth made it sound like a door closing. Downstairs, the long room was full again. Same dark wood. Same silent faces. Same table that made every person seated at it look like a judge. Adrian stood at the far end, his gray eyes unreadable. For one terrible second, I looked for the man from the storage room, the one whose pulse I had held beneath my fingers. All I saw was the boss. Mason placed a phone on the table. "This was recovered from a secure source," he said. "A message was sent from Miss Bennett's number at 2:09 in the morning, 8 minutes before the incident behind St. Mary's." My skin went cold before he even turned the screen. There it was, a message with my number above it. A location pin, the rear service entrance of the hospital. Beneath it, 6 words that made the room vanish around me. "He is here. Come through the back." I stared at the screen. No, my voice sounded too small. "That is not mine." Mason sighed softly, like disappointment hurt him. "The device record says otherwise." "I did not send that." One of the older men leaned forward. "You expect us to believe this is coincidence?" "I expect you to believe I was working a 19-hour shift and had 12% battery when I left that hallway." Mason tilted his head. "Exhaustion can make people desperate." "Desperate for what?" I looked around the table. "Money? Power? I had neither yesterday, and I have neither now." No one answered. That was worse. Silence let suspicion grow teeth. Adrian had not moved. He looked at the phone, then at me. His face gave nothing away, but I saw the hesitation. Not even a full second. Just a shadow across his eyes. It broke something in me more cleanly than an accusation could have. "Claire," he said, quiet. I stepped back. "Do not say my name like you are deciding what it means." His jaw tightened. The room held its breath. "I need to understand." "No," I whispered. Then louder. "No. You needed to understand when I opened that door. You needed to understand when I stood between you and the men looking for you. You needed to understand before they put a screen on the table and turned me into a problem." Mason's smile disappeared. Good. I wanted him to see that ordinary did not mean easy to erase. Adrian came around the table slowly, but I moved away before he reached me. It was not fear this time. It was grief. A hot, quiet kind that made my throat burn. "I pulled you out of the dark," I said, looking straight at him. "And you let them drag me into it." For the first time since I had met him, Adrian Kane looked struck silent. Not angry. Not powerful. Silent. Mason cleared his throat. "For the safety of the family, she should be held until we confirm who she contacted." Held. Such a clean word. Such an ugly meaning. Adrian turned his head toward Mason, and the room shifted with him. "No one touches her." Mason's eyes narrowed. "Then what do you suggest?" Adrian looked back at me. There was something there now, buried under control. Regret, maybe. But regret had arrived late. "She stays in the East Wing until I know who forged that message." The word forged moved through the room like wind through a cracked window. Mason's face barely changed, but I saw his fingers tighten against the table. Tiny. Fast. Enough. I had spent years reading patients who said they were fine while their hands told the truth. Mason had just told me his. If you are watching this Mafia romance story and wondering whether Claire should trust Adrian again, like this video and tell me in the comments what you would do in her place. Keep watching until the end, because this emotional Mafia boss story has a hidden betrayal, a powerful rescue, and a shocking family secret still waiting in the dark. The East Wing was not a prison, but it knew how to pretend. The hallway smelled like lemon polish and rain-soaked wool, and every window reflected a version of me I barely recognized. Borrowed black sweater. Pale face. Nurse badge in my hand like a small plastic witness. Adrian walked beside me without touching me. 2 of his men followed 10 feet back, quiet enough to make their presence feel worse. "You should have trusted me sooner," I said. My voice sounded calm. That surprised me. Adrian looked straight ahead. "I did not accuse you." "No. You just paused long enough for everyone else to hear it." His jaw moved once. That was all. We reached a sitting room with green walls, a fireplace, and shelves full of books that looked untouched. The moment the door closed behind us, the silence changed shape. Adrian stood near the window, the city lights far beyond him, gray eyes darker than the glass. "The message was forged," he said. "I know that now." I laughed once, softly, because anger was easier than shaking. Now is such a generous word. He turned. "Claire, do not." I held up one hand. "You do not get to say my name like it fixes the part where you let them put me on trial." His face went still, but not cold. That was worse. Cold would have been easier to hate. "In my world, trust gets people buried," he said. In mine, mistrust does. The words landed between us, and for a second, I thought he might actually understand. Then someone knocked. A man stepped in and murmured something to Adrian. I caught only pieces. St. Mary's. Police questions. Victor Shaw. Secure transfer. Adrian's eyes sharpened. Stay here, he said. That is not protection. That is storage. It is temporary. So was my shift. Then you happened. I moved past him toward the door. One of his men blocked my way, not aggressively, just firmly enough to remind me that I had choices only when powerful men allowed them. My pulse rose. Adrian gave a single nod, and the man stepped aside. Do not leave the house, Adrian said. Please. The word stopped me more than the order had. Please did not belong in his mouth. It sounded unfamiliar there, almost painful. For one heartbeat, I almost stayed. Then I remembered the pause in his eyes downstairs. I remembered the table. Mason's smile. The phone with my number on it. I need air, I said. And I need to remember what my life felt like before everyone started deciding it for me. The rain had softened into mist when I slipped out through the side terrace. No one stopped me. Maybe Adrian had told them not to. Maybe Mason had made sure they looked away. The driveway curved through black trees and silver puddles. My boots clicked against wet stone. I told myself I would walk to the gate, call a cab, go straight to St. Mary's, and prove the message was not mine. Simple, normal, brave enough to be stupid. Halfway down the drive, my phone lost signal. A set of headlights appeared beyond the trees, low and white, too still to be passing traffic. I stopped. The air changed. Every instinct I owned woke up at once. A car door opened somewhere ahead. Another behind me. I did not see faces. Only shapes in the mist and the soft sound of shoes on wet gravel. My hand tightened around my nurse badge. I turned to run, but the world narrowed to rain, breath, and the sudden slam of a door. My phone slipped from my fingers and hit the ground, screen glowing up at the dark sky. I heard someone say, Victor wants her alive. Then a cloth of black silence fell over the night. When Adrian found the driveway 12 minutes later, I was gone. Only my badge remained near the puddle, the little photo of me smiling under fluorescent hospital lights. Later, they told me he picked it up with both hands. Like it was breakable. Like I was already lost. And for the first time in his life, Adrian Kane did not give an order. He whispered my name like a prayer he had no right to make. I woke to the smell of dust, old coffee, and rain trapped inside concrete walls. For a few seconds, I thought I was back in the hospital basement after a power outage, waiting for generators to kick in. Then I tried to move, felt my wrists held behind the chair, and remembered the driveway. The headlights. The door slamming. The voice saying Victor wanted me alive. My breathing turned sharp, but I forced it down. In through the nose. Out through the mouth. Nurses learn panic the way firefighters learn smoke. You respect it, but you do not let it drive. The room was an office, or it had been once. A cracked desk. Metal blinds. One buzzing lamp. Somewhere beyond the walls, water dripped in a steady rhythm that sounded too much like a clock. My phone was gone. My badge was gone. My shoes were still on, which meant whoever brought me here had been in a hurry. Good. Hurry left mistakes. The door opened, and a man stepped inside wearing a charcoal coat over a pale blue shirt. Victor Shaw did. Not look like the monster I had imagined. That made him worse. He looked ordinary enough to stand behind me at a grocery store and ask whether I was done with the cart. Calm face. Careful hands. Eyes that smiled without warmth. Claire Bennett, he said. Adrian has made you very expensive. I swallowed. Send him an invoice. Victor laughed softly and pulled a chair across from me. You have spirit. That explains his poor judgment. A small camera sat on the desk, its red light blinking. Beside it was a printed statement. My name at the bottom. A confession I had never made. It said Adrian had planned the entire incident behind St. Mary's to frame Victor Shaw and start a war inside the city. It said I had helped him. It said I had sent the location message myself. My stomach turned, but my face stayed still. I am not reading that. Victor leaned back. You will. Everyone does what they must when they realize no one is coming soon enough. I looked at the camera, then at the blinds, then at the old wall clock that had stopped at 1:43. I made myself look smaller than I felt. Tired. Afraid. Breakable. Men like Victor believed fear made women honest. Sometimes it only made us observant. If Adrian planned it, I said carefully, why was he hurt so badly? Victor's eyes sharpened. Because Adrian has always enjoyed theater. The second wound was too high for theater, I whispered. It changed his breathing. Whoever gave you this story did not understand anatomy. The room went quiet. Victor stared at me, and I knew I had touched the edge of something real. What second wound? He asked. My heart kicked once. There it was. He did not know. So the person who created the fake message knew enough to frame me, but not enough to tell Victor everything. I let my voice shake on purpose. Mason said you knew. Victor's expression changed before he could stop it. Just a flicker. Annoyance. Recognition. The name had landed. Mason talks too much, he said. Then he stood, and his chair scraped the floor. I almost smiled. Almost. The room outside erupted in motion, not loud, not chaotic, just sudden. Footsteps. Doors. Men speaking over each other. Victor turned toward the sound, and in that tiny break, I twisted my thumb the way an emergency room patient once taught me after a rock climbing accident. Pain flashed white through my hand, but the plastic tie loosened enough for me to pull one wrist free. The door opened before Victor reached it. Adrian stood there in a black coat, rain on his shoulders, his face carved from something colder than anger. His eyes found mine first. Not Victor, not the camera, me. And in that look, I saw the apology he had not earned yet. Claire, he said. I stood slowly, one hand still numb, my voice steadier than my knees. Your enemy did not betray you. Adrian's gaze moved to the confession on the desk, then back to me. I looked straight at him, because the truth deserved no whisper. Your blood did. Adrian did not move for 3 seconds after I said Mason's name without saying it. Victor Shaw stood between us with the camera still blinking red on the desk, but somehow the room had already stopped belonging to him. That was the thing about Adrian Kane. He did not need to raise his voice to change the temperature. He only had to become still. Get Claire outside, he said. A man in a dark coat stepped toward me, gentle hands visible, careful not to frighten me. I wanted to argue. I wanted to stay and make sure Victor could not twist my words into another trap. But my legs had started shaking, and my wrist throbbed where I had forced it free, and for once, I let someone guide me through a door without mistaking help for a cage. The hallway smelled like rain, concrete, and old smoke. Adrian's men stood along the walls, silent and controlled, leaving space for me to breathe. No shouting, no chaos, just the clean, terrifying order of a world that solved problems behind closed doors. I did not look back. I had learned that some doors should stay shut once you survive them. By dawn, we were back at the Kane estate. The sky was gray over the winter trees, and the house looked colder than before, as if it knew blood had lied inside its walls. Adrian walked beside me through the front entrance. Not ahead of me, not behind me, beside me. Every person in the hall noticed. Mason was already in the council room when we entered. He wore the same polished calm, but his collar was slightly crooked and one cuff button was undone. Tiny details. Human details. The kind a nurse sees when a patient says they feel fine while their pulse tells the truth. The council sat around the long table again. This time, I did not stand at the edge like evidence. Adrian placed me at his left side, in the open, where everyone could see I was not hidden and not ashamed. Mason looked at me first, then at Adrian. You found her, he said. How fortunate. Adrian set the printed confession on the table, then the phone record, then a small drive no larger than a stick of gum. Victor Shaw recorded his own mistake, Adrian said. His voice was quiet, almost tired. He named the man who fed him the frame. Mason laughed once. Victor would say anything to survive the morning. Yes, Adrian said. So I asked someone else. The door opened, and an older woman stepped inside. I recognized her from the night before. Mrs. Delaney, the estate housekeeper, the one who had brought me tea and never met my eyes. She held a tablet in both hands. Adrian nodded to her, and she played the security footage from the East Corridor. Mason on the phone. Mason entering the room where my personal bag had been stored. Mason walking out with my phone in his hand. The silence that followed was not empty. It was full of endings. Mason's face hardened. I did what you would not, he said. I protected this family. Adrian looked at him, and there was grief there. Not weakness. Grief. You protected your ambition. Mason's mask cracked. She made you careless. You brought a stranger into our house and chose her word over your blood. No, Adrian said. Then he turned, not to Mason, but to me, in front of the council, in front of his family, in front of the men who had called me exposure, liability, problem. I chose the truth too late. My throat tightened. I did not forgive him in that moment. Forgiveness was not a light switch. But something inside me stopped bracing for the next blow that would not come. Adrian faced the table again. No one touches her. Not because she belongs to me. Because I owe her the truth, and this family owes her its shame. Mason stood so fast his chair scraped the floor. Two men moved near the door, but Adrian lifted one hand, and they stopped. He did not need to make a scene. The room had already chosen. Mason looked at me with hatred sharp enough to chill the air. I held his gaze anyway. Ordinary, he had called me. Maybe I was. Ordinary hands had opened the wrong door. Ordinary courage had listened closely enough to hear a lie breathe. And Ordinary was still standing when his perfect world began to fall apart. Adrian's voice followed Mason as he was escorted from the room, low and final. She did not make me weak. She reminded me what I still had left to protect. After Mason was taken out of the council room, no one spoke for a long time. The house seemed to hold its breath around us. All that stone and money and silence, suddenly unable to protect anyone from the truth. I stood beside Adrian with my wrist wrapped in clean gauze. My nurse badge returned to me, my name no longer floating on the table like evidence. Still, I did not feel victorious. Victory was too loud a word for what was left. I felt tired. I felt changed. I felt like a woman who had walked through someone else's darkness and found fingerprints on her own life. Adrian dismissed the council with one quiet sentence. Men who had judged me an hour earlier lowered their eyes as they left. Some looked ashamed. Some looked afraid. I did not need either. Shame was late. Fear was cheap. Adrian stayed by the window, his gray eyes on the winter trees beyond the glass. Dawn had turned the sky the color of old silver. I have a car waiting, he said. I almost laughed. Of course you do. He turned then, and there was no command in his face. That was what unsettled me most. Not to keep you here. To take you wherever you want to go. I stared at him. He reached into his coat and placed a small envelope on the table between us. Inside were a train ticket to Seattle, a new phone, enough cash to start over, and contact information for a hospital administrator who owed him a favor but would never know why I called. You arranged my escape, I said. No, Adrian answered. I arranged your choice. The words were so unlike him that they hurt. The man I met in a storage room had warned me that his world changed lives. The man standing in front of me now looked like he finally understood that protection without permission was only another kind of cage. He drove me himself to Union Station. No convoy. No men at every corner. Just Adrian behind the wheel of a black sedan. The city waking around us in streaks of headlights, coffee carts, and people who had no idea how close my life had come to disappearing inside a family war. We did not talk for most of the drive. The silence was not empty anymore. It was full of everything he had failed to say soon enough. At the curb, he carried my small bag but stopped before the doors. He did not try to follow me inside. I will not ask you to stay, he said. Rainwater clung to the shoulders of his dark coat. For the first time, Adrian Kane looked less like a king and more like a man waiting for a sentence. Good, I said. Because if I stay, it will not be because you need me hidden, watched, or protected. His eyes held mine. I know. And it will not be because I forgive you today. I know that too. My throat tightened. I looked past him at the station doors, at ordinary people dragging suitcases, holding coffee, kissing goodbye under yellow lights. I had wanted ordinary back so badly. But ordinary was not a place. It was a line inside me that no one, not Victor, not Mason, not even Adrian, would ever be allowed to cross again. I took the envelope. Then I handed back the ticket. Adrian looked down at it like it weighed more than his whole empire. Claire, I am going back to St. Mary's, I said. I have patience. I have rent that you are going to let me pay myself. I have a life that needs repairing. His mouth moved, but no words came. And you, I said, softer now, have a world that needs to learn the difference between loyalty and fear. He nodded once. Not as a boss. As a man who had finally heard me. I stepped toward the station, then turned back. If I ever see you again, Adrian, do not come with guards. For the first time since the night I opened that door, he almost smiled. How should I come? I looked at him beneath the pale Chicago morning. Honest, I walked away before my courage could change its mind. Behind me, Adrian Kane did not call my name. He did not order me back. He let me go? And somehow, That was the moment I knew he had truly started saving me. He ruled the city, but I became the line he refused to cross. If this emotional mafia romance story moved you, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, and comment your honest opinion about Claire and Adrian's choice. Would you forgive a powerful mafia boss who learned to protect without control, or would you walk away forever? Turn on the notification bell so you do not miss the next cinematic love story, hidden betrayal, and redemption arc on this channel. Keep watching the next video for another intense mafia boss romance filled with danger, emotion, and unforgettable choices. Thank you for watching, and I promise the next story will go even deeper.